going, everyone, and welcome to our second tutorial video. Today we're going to go through IGL'ing, which is what slightly won on the vote for our little suggestions tab, which I thought was really cool. We had a couple of suggestions. There's a very clear top 3 and pretty much what you guys wanted to see, which I think is really important. So we might continue doing those suggestions again rather than just me picking some. But today you guys chose IGL'ing, which nearly won last week as well. So I think you guys are pretty keen to see what we have to say. Unfortunately, you've chosen a really tricky one, as I'm not the IGL for my team Incognito. However, I have IGL'd in the past, and I mean, obviously, everybody sort of has their own sort of understanding of like who you know, should be the IGL team, who actually does the calling for the team. But we're just going to talk about it. We're going to make it a pretty short video. And then hopefully you guys can learn some stuff from it and then give feedback or like express your thoughts on what, you know, you think is an IGL and what isn't. I haven't got any cool little snippets for you guys today because I don't think that's how I want to make the video. There's not really examples or anything that I can really give you that's really going to make much of a difference rather than just me talking about it. But, you know, I think you guys will still enjoy it and still learn from it. We might throw in something, I'm not too sure, but yeah. Let's get started. Pretty much IGL, for those of you who didn't know that IGL stands for in-game leader. Now, I want to quickly pay attention to the last word in that, and that's leader. And a lot of players forget that that's probably one of the most important parts of being a IGL is this leader part. And what I mean by that is that being an IGL doesn't necessarily mean that your job is just to make the right calls all the time. A leader is so much more than that. A leader is somebody who is trying to motivate and give positive feedback to their team to do the best they can. That's literally, you know, the more arguably more important than just being the person who makes the shot calls. And that's what a lot of people I don't think understand about being an IGL is that last word part to that. I've seen a lot of IGLs who, yeah, they might be really smart, but they aren't necessarily the right fit for the job because they don't have that leadership qualities that is expected of them. If you want your team to succeed, you need to make sure that you have good leadership qualities so that way you can succeed again and again and again. If you're only succeeding a couple of times, well, what's the point of being a really good caller if your team don't want to play with you or whatever it may be? So that's a really important thing for some people to understand, is that an in-game leader isn't just somebody who just makes the calls. But that leads us on to our next topic of IGLing. So who should IGL in the team? Who is the best fit for the job in your team? Now this one's a tricky one, and we're going to start off with a little bit of something that I've learned from places like FGS or just watching some other tutorial videos, just even asking on stream about some of the different regions, the way they like to do it. As some of you are aware, some of you may not be, IGLing is not necessarily a one-person task. Okay, so in some teams it's shared among all 4 players evenly, maybe between 3, maybe between 2, or it may just be a one-person task. You guys need to find out what is going to work best for your team. I don't think there's any right answer. I don't think there's any wrong answer. It's up to you guys to decide what's going to work best for you. Now, I can give you some reasons, some examples to why 1 might be better or 4 might be better to help you guys better understand which one would be right for your team. So pretty much, if you're in a team that has somebody who is really, really good at understanding the play styles of, you know, other members of the team, other members in the lobby, other teams in the lobby, and they're really good at making your rotation calls, then maybe that person can look into your early game rotates and things like that to help you, you know, keep 4 alive or get into a strong spot going into the middle of the game or whatnot. And that's really important to have. And then you might have somebody who is what you would say maybe like a fast-paced caller. Somebody who's much better thinking on the spot, is much clearer communicator when they're in a sticky situation. Because that necessarily won't be, like, there might not be somebody on your team who can do both. And that's a really good way to determine who's going to do what in your team and what roles that they're going to play as IGL. So you could have an in-game leader for your rotations, in-game leader for your fighting. You can have an in-game leader for your, let's say, potentially like late game, early game. I'm not too sure how you guys want to do it, but you guys need to figure out what is the best way for your team to operate. And if that is necessarily splitting up roles of IGLing, times to IGL with different players in your team, then that's not a bad thing. And that's something that you can explore and look into. So, yeah, and if you don't have any of those people, you have somebody who can do it, you know, they can do it by themselves, then maybe that's the way to go. Because pretty much the more stickier a situation you're in, or, you know, when it's really high pressure, what you need to make sure is that there's one voice being heard. You need to make sure that there's only one person speaking, and then that call is being listened to. Because what tends to happen in those high pressure situations is that you know, people start doing their own things, and people, you know, start doing individual mistakes. And then when you go into VOD reviews, you look back at it and you say, oh, well, you know, Cow, you made the wrong call there. But then when you have some people doing the call, and then you have some people who aren't doing the call, you can't really blame what was actually the idea. Like, if the idea was to push a team, you've got two members of your team pushing, you got two members of your team sort of not committing to it, then how can you actually say that the idea was bad when it wasn't actually achieved? Nobody really tried to do it, you know? But if you have four people doing it and then it doesn't work out, that's when you can look back on it and say, hey, IGL, that call didn't work. And then you actually improve from there, and you learn, okay, why didn't that call work? Rather than it being a back and forth of, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, which, by the way, it just wastes time. All it's doing, your analysis time at the end of the game is now ruined because of, you know, your ability to not learn from the situation. You know, you can learn and be like, hey, well, you know, we didn't do the call. Next time we're going to make sure we do the call, which is fantastic. That's learning. But if it's happening over and over again, you're not actually improving as a team. You're just wasting your time. You're wasting your analysis, which is, you know, arguably the most important part of this game. Doesn't matter if you can shoot, it's about improving as a team. So making sure that if you're in a sticky situation or something like that, you need to have an IGL there, and they need to be listened to. So that way you can talk about your idea at the end of the match, if it worked or didn't work, and improve upon that idea. Alright, so that's who you need to look at, potentially as being your IGL. It could be anybody on the team, but they need to be a fast thinker, so yes, it is important to have those qualities and aspects in place ready to go, but it's important for the rest of the team to listen to that IGL in the sticky situation. Rotations can be a little bit funky because there's a lot more outside factors that influence rotations, but again, sticking to that basis of, alright, that's the call, that's what we're going to do, that's what my IGL has said, then you can go into your analysis and you can learn faster, which is the most important thing. Alright, cool. So different ways to IGL. So you, like I said before, you have your rotation, you have your fighting. Rotation in the early game doesn't necessarily need to be somebody who can be a fast thinker. They probably need to be the hardest working. Alright, so outside a game. So these are the IGLs you need to be making sure they're looking at VODs and seeing how teams like to rotate around the map, where they drop, how they react to different circles, and then making informed decisions based on that to get your team into the zone, into the strongest spot possible, or potentially just for alive. So that's your rotation IGL, and then yeah, you got to go from there. The other IGL is, like I said, is probably like the fighting IGL. Is probably the next most common one. Having somebody who leads your team into fights. Same as I said before, like obviously normally when you're fighting, it's a high pressure situation. Make sure they're being listened to. Your voice needs to be heard. When I say, you know, it's on the team to make sure they listen, it's also your job to make your instructions as clear as possible to your team. Make sure everybody's on the same page. What I'm about to say next is one of the most important things that if you can get into your head is going to make you a much better player if you are this fighting IGL, and yeah, really help improve your team as well, is if your team do not understand what you said, it is not on them. That is on you. If you did not explain to a point that your team can understand, that is not on them. That is 100% your responsibility. It is your responsibility to ask how you think, how they think they could have understood better, and then it is your job to learn from that, and then try and make sure you incorporate that into your next similar position that you get put into, next similar situation. Alright, so if you cannot do that, you are not a very strong IGL. You need to be able to take one on the chin every now and again and make sure that you are there to improve. Okay, and then, you know, the next time that happens, now you've got everybody on the same page. Now we're starting to build some momentum. Now we're starting to build some confidence, and now we're becoming a better team. Okay, so that's something that I see a lot, and a lot of people, you know, they don't cop it on the chin enough to actually understand that, you know, if their team doesn't understand, then it must be the team's fault. Well, yeah, that's not the case, okay? Yeah, even if there's one person in your team that didn't understand, it is your job to explain to them what manner you were talking about, and then it's your job to make sure that if that is a similar situation again, that you need to handle the situation the same way as well, so that way we're not constantly flipping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Create expectations, all right, for your players to make sure that, you know, everything's being met. All right, cool. Now, all those things have actually sort of tied into how to be an effective IGL. So, unfortunately, you know, I've almost said every single way of how to be an effective IGL. I can add on top of that. So when you're talking about the you know, the rotations and stuff, I do see a lot of people streaming some of their scrims. I see a lot of people, you know, well, you know, I've filled in for enough teams to know that to be an even more effective IGL, they need to be fast thinking. Multiple things need to be going through their head. So when you're in rotation, or, you know, you're set up and looking, you know, to get into the next zone, there's so many other things you need to be making sure is happening, so that way they don't come bite you back in the analysis later. Too many times have I seen or heard or even been a part of it with my team, is that, you know, we'd be in a fight and then one of my teammates hasn't had grenades, and then the conversation goes, oh, I had 6 grenades. You know, so here's an opportunity to give a role to somebody else in your team to make sure that everybody has utility split. How simple is that? To be able to split up your utility. I still see teams that don't do that, or split up, you know, their meds, or split up their ammunition or whatever it is. And then you get caught in a pickle, and all your analysis is, oh, if we only did that, we would have won. So that's another really important thing for an IGL to be thinking, is that when there is nothing going on, there should be. If there isn't something going on at every stage of the match, you're not utilizing the match to your full potential. And that comes down to the IGL. Now, I don't care who that is on the team. It could be all 4 of you, it could be 3, it could be 2, it could be 1. But whatever it needs to be, it needs to make sure that happens consistently every single game. So that way it doesn't become a conversation at the end of the game 4, 5, 10, 20 times. Alright, so that's what we're trying to do. If we're trying to be an effective IGL, we're trying to avoid those stupid, silly analysis moments at the end of our matches. You know, we actually want to talk about productive things. We don't want to talk about, you know, things that were extremely easily avoidable. And that's going to help our team improve a lot faster. And that's what PUBG is how fast can your team improve and continue improving from there. We don't want to get to a point where we're at stalemate. You know, we're not improving anymore. We're not learning. Every single, you know, team in our region, and every other region, sorry, I should say, whether they be top tier, bottom tier, should all be aiming to improve and learn. And if you guys are consistently, you know, having analysis regarding things that are that minor and that small, then you're wasting your analysis opportunity, which is arguably so important, okay? And when it comes to those analysis things, this is where the IGL really needs to step up and needs to make sure that everybody is feeling confident and understands what happened, what went wrong, what was going through everybody's heads. So that way, the next time, this is the thing, similar situation pops up, that it's not going to occur again. All right, so yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Now, next week, I do want to say is that I actually really was looking forward to doing potentially a team VOD review tutorial, because this is going to tie in really, really nicely with this IGL'ing one that we're going to. I have so much to talk about, and I think you guys are going to love it. So we might not do the suggestion one next week, but I think you guys are going to really thoroughly enjoy. Now, again, I'm really sorry that you just literally had to look at this notepad, but I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. I could have added an example. Let me know if you wanted to see a more elaborate one, or more maybe a potentially a more specific one, and look, I can look at doing that as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something, and yeah, just let me know down in the comments, or DM me on, you know, Twitter or Discord, and just let me know if you guys have any other further questions. All right, cool. Well, until next week, I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.